Hi everyone, and welcome to this final episode of An Englishman in China. I know it's been a long time since I went to China now. It's been nearly a year. I went early May last year, and today is April the 16th, so coming up for a year. And if you remember at the end of my last video when I was in Beijing, hang on a sec. There's supposed to be a slideshow for you to look at there. Yeah, when I was on my last day in Beijing, I said that I'd get back and I'd rewatch my footage and put together a video summing up my experience, my impressions, and that's always been my intention. But I wanted it to be a thorough and concise video, and that, in a way, be able to help people who are perhaps planning a trip to China. And I just kept putting it off, thinking that I didn't have enough ideas to make it happen. But I think if I don't do it now, then I'll probably never do it. So I'm just going to go ahead and go off the top of my head about some things about my trip, some impressions that I got, some advice that I think may be beneficial to somebody who's planning a trip to China. And also I want to answer some questions that I've gotten in the comments section on my Englishman in China videos. So first off, I'll answer some of the more popular questions that were asked in my comments. The first one is, how much did it cost? And when I've been replying to these comments, I've sort of guessed and said £3,000. Well, it turns out I found the actual slip of paper that I wrote down all the calculations of how much I was putting into my savings, how much I was taking out to pay for things like flights, hotels, etc. And I added it all up the other day, and it does come to exactly £3,000. And that's for everything. That's for flights, hotels, trains, food, spending money, entrance tickets, entrance fees to like temples or museums and stuff that we had to pay for. That included that included hiring a driver for the day to go to the Great Wall, because the part we went to is a 2-hour drive outside of Beijing. So rather than mess around with buses and stuff, we just hired a driver for the day. So yeah, that £3,000 is obviously it's a lot of money, but that is for everything. Every expense involved in going to China. I'll put a conversion up of what £3,000 is in other currencies somewhere on the screen. I just want to add that, yeah, £3,000 is a lot of money. It took me a while to save it up, but if you're watching this video and you're thinking, oh, you know, I can't afford that, or I'll never be able to save that up, I just want to point out that me and Luke, or Luke and I should say, we didn't do things on the cheap. Yes, we didn't stay in 5-star hotels, but we didn't stay in hostels either. They were sort of mid-range. We ate at relatively nice places. You know, we mixed it up with some Western meals, which obviously do cost a lot more than Chinese food. You know, we paid to do all the stupid touristy shit, like, you know, go through the tunnel thing in Shanghai that you see in the Shanghai video. You know, things like that. We didn't budget ourselves too tightly, and I think if you do want to go to China, you can do pretty much the same as we did, but for a lot less. If you're prepared to stay in hostels, eat just Chinese food at little roadside cafes and restaurants and stuff like that, if you're prepared to take public transport everywhere, because me and Luke, just for probably just being lazy, we took quite a few taxis. But yeah, you can get the bus is so cheap. I can't remember how much it was, but it's to get the bus anywhere is like probably less than £1 British. So yeah, you can do things for a lot cheaper than we did. We just, you know, we're probably just too Western to do it on a complete shoestring. So yeah, we looked after ourselves quite well when we were there. So yeah, I just wanted to add that. And the second most common question I got was, did I plan the trip myself, or did I go with a tour guide or like a tour group? Going with a tour group did cross my mind, and it's something that I looked into. I got some brochures and I got some quotes from some various companies online. And tour groups, if you want to take the hassle out of it, tour groups seem like a good idea. But the two reasons that I didn't go with a tour group is, firstly, for the exact same price, the £3,000 that we spent, or that I individually, because I spent £3,000, Luke spent around the same. We split everything 2 ways. But yeah, for £3,000 per person, you can go with a tour guide. We could go with like a tour group, but you only go for like 2 weeks, 3 weeks. We went for 4 weeks, and also with a tour group, that price you pay doesn't include you spending money, and I think you have to pay for your own meals as well. So if you want to buy souvenirs, some food and stuff like that, you have to budget for that on top of the £3,000 it costs to go for 2 weeks with a tour group. And another reason that we didn't go with a tour group is because you're going in a shorter period of time, like 2 weeks. Everything that you do, like they have similar itineraries to what me and Luke did, but you cram it all into such a short time. So like you'll go to say the Great Wall of China, you might spend the morning doing that, and then you'll spend the afternoon doing the Forbidden City. Whereas we spent a full day doing each of those things. So we were able to enjoy it more, I think. We were able to take our time and see a lot more and not feel rushed, like we had to keep up with everybody else, or that we had to quickly look at something and then skim over something else. So yeah, that's why I didn't go with a tour group. So I planned it myself, and it's not that difficult to plan by yourself. You can do everything online. You can book your flights online, your hotels, your trains. Just go on Google or whatever and just do some shopping around. See if you can always find good deals, or flights that suit you and your own requirements. So as for flights, I used a comparison site called Kayak. There's others out there that you might want to try, but I used Kayak for hotels. I used Agodo or Agado. I'll put something on the screen. I'll look up what it was and I'll put something on the screen. And for trains, I used a company called Ctrip. There are a few other companies as well. And basically, to buy train tickets, or tickets for trains in China, you have to be able to read Chinese, because the ticket website that sells them is all in Chinese. But obviously, if you don't read Chinese, like I don't, you can use one of these companies. Like I said, I use Ctrip, and you pay them a fee, and they basically organise all your train journeys for you. They pay for the tickets and then send you like a confirmation slip, like an email. And then when you're in China, you take the confirmation slip to the counter and they exchange it for the tickets. Like I said, it cost a little bit more. I think, I wouldn't even like to guess, I can't remember, but they charge so much. It's all in renminbi, Chinese money, but they charge so many renminbi per ticket extra for their sort of administration charge. But it takes a lot of the hassle out of it, so yeah, I can recommend Ctrip as a good company to go through to do that. Everything else is really simple, just do it online, and that's the best way to book your own trip to China. Another thing that you'll find really handy for planning your trip to China is a guidebook, and you'll also find it useful when you're there. Now, I read an article a little while back about, it was called something like the top 10 tips to get the best out of your travel experience, and one of the tips was don't be that guy with the guidebook, which is bullshit, because the argument that whoever wrote the article was trying to put forward is you should be more spontaneous and do what the locals do, and yeah, it's a fair enough point. I'm not saying you have to rigidly stick to whatever it says in here. Plenty of things during our trip were spontaneous. You know, we just got there and then saw something that looked good, like cycling around Westlake. That was actually our Dutch friend. It was her idea to do that. But if me and Luke wouldn't have even thought to do that, and I don't think it's in the guidebook. So yeah, you do find yourself being spontaneous and finding things to do. But also when it comes to planning your trip, you need to figure out where you want to go, what you want to see, and what better way to do it than with a guidebook. And also when you're there, the guidebook recommends restaurants, it recommends places to drink, it recommends all sorts of things to see and do. So yeah, I would really recommend you get a guidebook, because it will be a great help planning your trip, and it'll be a great help when you're actually in China. Another thing that you want to do is get a phrase book, or maybe learn a bit of Chinese off by heart before you go, because China is different in the sense, say if you go to some European countries, a lot of people speak English as well as their own language. Take Amsterdam for example. When I went to Amsterdam, I don't think I had to speak any Dutch at all. I did out of courtesy, I'd say please and thank you, and I'd order a beer or whatever in Dutch, but I didn't need to. Everyone spoke English. And if you go to some other European countries, you always know that the youth will speak English. So if you need to communicate with someone, you can just ask a young person, and they'll tell you. They'll be able to speak to you. China isn't the same in that respect. There are some people, especially in the big cities like Shanghai, Beijing, who speak English, and you get people who come up and want to practice their English with you. But in some of the other places that we went to, English just isn't a language that's spoken by hardly anybody there. So you'll do really well to learn a bit of Chinese before you go, even if it's just asking for directions or ordering food, simple things. But it will really be beneficial to learn a bit of Chinese before you go. So now I'll give you some tips on planning and booking your trip to China. Next I want to talk about some things that I think may come in handy. Some things that will ease the culture shock that you will get. And you will get culture shock. I didn't think that I would, because I've always had an interest in China. I watched all of Serpent ZA's videos. He does China How It Is. Watched all of his videos, other China vloggers. I read the travel guide. I read articles online by people who live or have visited China, and I thought I would be so prepared and that nothing would shock me. Nothing would, be so crazy that it'd affect me. But it did. At the first, for me, the culture shock was the first few days in Beijing. The first few days in China, and I just want to add, just to mention that if you are planning a trip to China, don't plan any activities, no sort of intensive sightseeing or whatever on your first few days, because you're not going to enjoy it, or you're not going to enjoy it as much. I had crazy jet lag. Like, I'd just be so tired, but I couldn't sleep. I lost my appetite. I was just, not in a great mood for the first 2 or 3 days that we were there. And when you include the culture shock that comes with it, it's just China is a very, very different place to what most Europeans or Americans or just Westerners in general. It's going to be very different to what you're used to in your own life, in your own country, in your own culture. So although I knew to expect the spitting, I knew to expect squat toilets, I knew to expect a different level of manners. I'm not saying that the Chinese people are rude, but their ideals of manners are not the same as Western, or at least British ideals of manners. Please and thank you aren't really said very often. People don't ask you to, excuse me if you're in the way. They just fucking nudge you out of the way. And the best way to deal with it is just to go along with it and act like a Chinese person. When we were in the Forbidden City, it took me until towards the end of the trip to sort of get out of my Western thinking and start acting like a Chinese person would. But in the Forbidden City, I think it was our second to last day or our last day, and I was looking at a headdress that belonged to some empress, and it was in like a glass case, and there was a placard in front of it explaining whose it was and what it was used for and everything like that. And this tour group of Chinese people came in, and you'll see them everywhere. Any tourist place you go to in China, they have these hordes of tourist groups, and they all wear similar coloured or the same coloured hat, and they all follow some woman who's got like a flag or an umbrella up in the air, and they all follow her, and she you know, gives them a guided tour. Anyway, so this group comes in, and I stood there and I'm reading the thing, and these old Chinese guys just come up and basically push me out of the way, forcibly, like nudge me out of the way. And this had happened a few times throughout my time in China, but by that point I just thought, fuck it. Rather than get upset about it and think, well, that's rude, I just pushed them out of the way myself. I thought, no, I was here first, I was reading that, you can fucking get out of my way. So then I nudged them out of the way, and there's no sort of hard feeling. They didn't start shouting at me, or they didn't seem offended by it. It's just like, that's how it is. It's, get out of my way. It's a very different sort of situation, but yeah, that's the best way I would describe culture shock, is that although you may expect certain things, when they are actually happening to you, or when you actually see it for your own eyes, it does take a while to get used to. Another thing I noticed when I was in China is if you ask for directions of somebody, don't always take them at their word, because it took me a while to notice it. I think I noticed it when I was in Chengdu. A lot of Chinese people, especially the older generation, feel uneasy, I think, talking to foreigners. Even if you're talking to them in Chinese, they just want to get rid of you as quickly as possible. So if you ask for directions, I found it happening quite a lot, and I eventually realised. And then they'll just go, yeah, it's down there. And they don't know that it's down there. They're just like, yeah, it's down there. Just basically go away from me, ask somebody else. So yeah, if you're asking for directions, just be careful that you are actually getting the correct directions, because sometimes you just sort of fobbed off quite quickly, and you'll find yourself, like we did, we'd be like walking down the road going, well, where the fuck is this place that we're looking for, and then we'd ask somebody else and they'd point us back in the other direction, and when we did eventually find the place, it was nowhere where we'd been being told it was. So yeah, that's just something to look out for. I also just want to mention food really quickly. Chinese food is nothing like Chinese food in the West, and that is something that I think does also take some time to get used to, because yeah, there's some very weird things on the menu there, as you saw us eat. But one thing that I sort of, before I went to China, I watched a video on YouTube of this girl who was on an exchange program in Beijing, and it was like a video diary of similar to what I did, and she was just recording her time in China. And there's one scene where her and her friends go to a shopping mall in Beijing, and they see a Papa John's pizza place, and they're all going crazy. They're so excited that they've found Papa John's, and you know, they're all, yeah, high-fiving and all the rest of it. And I remember, this is before I went to China, I watched it thinking, you crazy woman, you're in a country that's famous for its food, and all you can think about is pizza. And after watching that video, I swore to myself that when I went to China, I wasn't going to be one of those guys, one of those tourists who are so westernised that they can't accept other cultures, perhaps, or things that come along with the culture, like food. But I take that back now. Now I've been to China, because you know you used to eat in a certain range of foods every day of your life, and then when you go to China and you have food that you've never had before, it gets a bit, it's strange, it's unusual. Your body's not used to it, your taste buds aren't used to it, and sometimes you do find yourself just wanting a slice of pizza or a burger. So yeah, I'd just say don't be ashamed if you give in to the temptations of Western food, because yeah, and don't forget, in a lot of restaurants that you go to, the menu is going to be all in Chinese, and a lot of the time when we were there we didn't know what we were ordering. We just pointed at something. Sometimes it was fantastic, sometimes it was a bit gross, but it's sort of hit and miss. So at least with Western food you know what you're getting, then you can, if you want to be sure that of what you're ordering, go to a place that serves Western food. Although I would point out that Western food in China is terrible. McDonald's, I don't know, you would have thought McDonald's would be similar or the same throughout the world. But Chinese McDonald's didn't taste very nice, at least not to me. The KFC didn't taste very nice. In fact, one thing that I really was disappointed about with the KFC was the mayo. Now, back home in the UK, I put mayo on everything. It's like my favourite thing ever. But mayo isn't common in China. So we went to KFC and I was like, yes, finally going to have some mayo. I hadn't had like mayo for a week or two, starting to get withdrawal symptoms. But anyway, and it was just sweet, runny, not very mayo-like, and yeah, it was just disappointing. And a lot of the places we had pizza, they don't put tomato sauce base on the pizza, they just put the toppings straight on the bread. On the bread base. And yeah, and the cheese isn't very good because you don't get a lot of dairy products. You won't find fresh milk. Cheese you won't find in very many places, at least not like a block of cheese. You'll get like burger cheese. I call it plastic cheese because of the way it melts on burgers, but I'm sure you know what I mean, like processed cheese. Things like that. So yeah, just be aware that what you eat in the West, even though you'll find variations of it in China, it's not going to be the same. It's not going to be as good. And yeah, don't feel ashamed of yourself for giving in and going to buy a cheeseburger or a pizza instead of eating Chinese food all the time. Although, I will add, Chinese food is awesome too. If you're in Chengdu, you've got to try the hot pot. Baozi, jiaozi, noodles, what's called lanzhou ramen. There's so much great food over there, so yeah, sort of mix it up a bit. Try some Chinese food because it is awesome, but when you're feeling a bit like you want something that you know what you're eating, you want some home comforts, go for the Western food, and but prepare to be disappointed. To finish up, yeah, I just want to go through each city that we visited and give you my impressions of the place. Yeah, just let you know what I thought about it, what the particular city has to offer, and maybe that'll help you make up your mind whether you want to visit there too. So first of all is Beijing. Beijing is a bit of a strange city. The first time around, I didn't like it. It was busy, it was polluted, it was noisy. I got a sense that people were a lot more rude in Beijing. Now that could be a capital city thing, because people down in London, in the UK, have a reputation of being ruder than other places in the UK. So maybe it's the sort of stereotype that people from northern China are more hardy and no nonsense. But yeah, I just, that's the impression I got of Beijing the first time around. That could have been affected by the culture shock and the jet lag, because the second time around in Beijing I enjoyed it a lot more. Possibly because, like I said, I wasn't in culture shock and jet lag the second time around. It was the last place we visited before we went home again. The weather was nicer, it wasn't as smoggy. So yeah, that could have contributed to it as well. But Beijing is great for history and for culture. Obviously you've got the Forbidden City, Temple of Heaven, what's it called? The Summer Palace. We didn't visit there, but it would have been good if we did. But you've got the old and the new. I think it's called the Summer Palace. You've got all the museums, all the art galleries. There's just so much to see in Beijing. If you like history or if you're a bit of a culture vulture, then yeah, great. And also you've got the Great Wall as well. And like I mentioned, when we went to the Great Wall, there's so many places on the Great Wall that you can visit. Some of it's closed off and other places are open. But I can really recommend the place that we went to. We walked from Jinshanling to Samatai. It's old wall. I think I said in the video exactly how old it was. I think it's like 14th century original. Because a lot of the most popular part of the wall that people go to is Badaling, and that was pretty much rebuilt before the Summer Olympics in 2008. So for convenience, I think Badaling is the closest to Beijing, but if you want something more rugged, wild and original, you want to venture out to the other parts of the wall that haven't been so fully renovated. So next is Xi'an. I loved Xi'an. Xi'an was the first time in China that I really felt like yes, now I like China. And I know I keep going on about it, but I think like I said, the first few days in Beijing when we first got to China were just a write-off basically. Because I was jet lagged and just not enjoying my time there. But when we got to Xi'an and we were riding on the old city walls, and I just thought, yeah, now I'm on holiday, now I'm enjoying myself. Again, there's so much culture and history. I think Xi'an was the old capital before it was moved. Yeah, it was the old capital before it was moved to Beijing. So there's so much history and culture ingrained in Xi'an. The food was really good in Xi'an as well. The weather, it was really sort of dry heat. So a lot of China, especially in the southern parts, is like humid heat. It's really sticky, sweaty, uncomfortable heat. Xi'an was really sort of dry and more bearable. It was red hot. I think I got sunburnt there, but it's more bearable. So yeah, and it's a great place to walk around at night as well. It's all lit up. There's plenty of bars, karaoke, just so much to see and do there. So yeah, I can really recommend Xi'an. The next place we went to after that was Chengdu. Now Chengdu was, I think disappointment is a bit of a too strong a word, but I think Chengdu is overstated. If you read any sort of top 10 places to visit in China or things like that, everybody raves about Chengdu, how good it is and the atmosphere, and it's not a bad place. I enjoyed it, but I think it gets a lot more hype than it deserves. Great food in Chengdu. It's part of Sichuan province, I think, so really spicy, really flavourful, lots of meat. It's great food. Very hot place. I think it's known for that, not just the food but the weather as well. But yeah, as far as things to do and see, we saw the pandas. And then I don't think we did much else in Chengdu. It's great for tea houses and sort of, like we went to the tea house, we got our ears cleaned. a relaxing place. I think that's the best way to describe Chengdu, is it's relaxing. It's slow paced. There's not a whole lot to see and do cultural wise, I think, or historically speaking, there's not much to see and do. But say if shopping is your thing, they have big malls and stuff like that there. But yeah, if you want a bit of rest and relaxation, then yeah, go to Chengdu and check out the pandas, because that was amazing. So yeah, that's my impressions of Chengdu. The next place we went to was Guilin in Yangshuo. We only spent one day in Guilin before. In fact, I don't think we were there a full day. We got there in the evening and then left early the next morning. Go on a boat down the Li River. But it was an absolutely beautiful place, really breathtakingly beautiful. All the karst cliffs. You've got to do the Li River cruise, go on the bamboo boats, and then we went on like a bigger ferry type thing. But yeah, it's absolutely amazing scenery. The only sort of thing that I think detracted from the whole thing in Yangshuo is that it's basically a tourist city. It's busy, it's noisy, it's but I mean, that's not necessarily a bad thing, because it adds to the atmosphere. You can, go out at night and there's so many bars and things to see. But I think if you go in there thinking that it's going to be secluded beauty, then you're going to be in for a shock, because yes, it's beautiful, but it's also a tourist city, a bit of a party city. So yeah, just be prepared for that, but I'd definitely recommend a trip to Yangshuo. Another thing that detracted, for me at least, maybe if you're from a hotter climate it won't affect you as much, but the temperature was unbearable. And it's not just hot, it's humid, it's sweaty. I mean, I'd wake up in the morning, have a shower, I'd have the air conditioning on in my room, I'd have a shower and everything, be nice and clean, ready to go out. I'd open my door to the corridor of the hotel and the heat would just hit me and I'd be sweating straight away. I'd only just got clean and then just sweat. And I think we were sat outside a bar on our last day. We were under a canopy, shaded. You wouldn't have thought it would be that hot, but we were just sweat pouring off our faces. It's really sweaty, and you'll be taking like 2 or 3 showers a day there, because yeah, it's that bad. But if you can stand the heat, if you can stand the sweatiness, then it's a great place to visit. Next is Shenzhen. I don't have a lot to say about Shenzhen because we only spent one full day there. We got there on the evening and then we met up with Winston and Dave. And then the next morning we went for dim sum with Winston for breakfast, and then he had to go off to work, so we had a look round this electronics market that he recommended. That was interesting, the sheer scale of the place. And then yeah, we just chilled out the rest. Oh, that we went up. I can't remember. It's like a mountain. You see the pictures with me and Luke stood with a statue of Deng Xiaoping. But yeah, that was a great sort of hike up to the top. But overall, I don't think I saw enough of Shenzhen because we left. We stayed the night. So we had a full day, then we stayed the night, and then we left early the next morning. Or we might have got the train that evening. I can't remember. But yeah, basically what I'm saying is I didn't see enough of Shenzhen to give an honest opinion of what I thought. From what I did see, it's a very clean city. You'll notice, as compared to other cities in China, it's very clean. It's everything's air conditioned and airy and tidy and clean, and it's very very westernized city. I think with it being so close to Hong Kong. But yeah, that's all I can really say about Shenzhen. Next was Hangzhou, my all-time favourite place in China that we went to. I just can't say enough good things about it. It was amazing, really. It's just, there's not a whole lot to do. Again, like I said about Chengdu, there's not a whole lot to do for sightseeing. There's loads of temples, so if you want to visit temples, but like I said in one of the videos, we were getting all templed out. We just seen so many temples throughout our trip in China that they all start to look the same after a while. So, but if you're into temples, plenty of those to go and see. But really, it's just about the scenery. You have West Lake, which is an absolutely beautiful lake, and to be honest, I could sit there every evening and just drink some beers, which is pretty much what we did the whole time we were there. We went on a cycle trip with our Dutch friend around the lake. That was really good. Oh, and then you've got I think it's the Leifeng Pagoda. That's good. But like I said in the video, it's kind of disappointing when you realise that the one that stands there now, I think it was rebuilt in 1922 or something like that. The one before it, I think, was like Tang Dynasty, so it was old, but it basically fell down, and then now they've built this new one. And there's escalators up to the top as well. It's all very modern, and there's a big glass elevator inside that goes up. It detracts from its historical heritage, but once you get to the top, you've got beautiful, amazing views over West Lake. You can see all the city, because you've got like old Hangzhou and new Hangzhou, and you've got the old on one side, and then you've got the new with all the skyscrapers and all the rest of it on the other. But it's a perfect place to chill out, and we did a lot of people watching there. People watching is a fun activity in China. Just sit there, have a few beers, chat, and just watch people go by, because it's always interesting. But yeah, I can recommend Hangzhou it gives you that sort of old feel of China. What you might have expected China to be like a few hundred years ago. The sort of, the lake and the stereotypical image of, the humpbacked bridges and the hanging willow trees and the blossoms, and it's that romantic image of China. In fact, that's Hangzhou, I think, and that's the picture from the One UN note. See, like the romantic, the pagodas, the willows, the lake. It's just that whole image, iconic image of China. So yeah, I can't recommend Hangzhou enough. Next, we went to Shanghai. Now, Shanghai for me was the opposite of Chengdu, in the sense that when I went to Chengdu, I was underwhelmed, and I expected so much from Chengdu from what I'd read and heard about it. Whereas with Shanghai, I didn't expect much, and to be honest, we nearly didn't go to Shanghai, because I read a few articles online and I spoke to people who'd been to China, and they said it's just a metropolitan city, basically. It's so removed from real China that you could be in any main city anywhere in the world, and I didn't really want that. And it has pretty much no historical or cultural things to see. So yeah, we nearly didn't go. The only reason we went is that after a bit of thought about it, I thought, well, you can't go to China and skip Shanghai, especially as we were in the roundabout area of Shanghai with us being in Hangzhou. So yeah, but Shanghai was an amazing city. Yes, it is just a big city, and there are millions of big cities, metropolitan cities all over the world, but it has a character, it has an atmosphere. Walking down the Bund, and you've got the what do you call it, like a cityscape on the other side of the river, and when it's all lit up at night, it's amazing. There's so many good little bars and stuff, especially if you go around to the old town or the old district, whatever it's called. There's so many nice little shack bars and everything. It's great. I mean, also if you're into shopping and fashion and things like that, there's so many malls. There's like malls everywhere in Shanghai. The one thing that I think detracted from Shanghai is it was expensive, like really expensive. And I'm not talking expensive for China, I'm talking expensive by Western standards as well. Everything was just like, you know, you'd pay more in Shanghai than what you'd pay in London, for example. It was very expensive, but a beautiful city, really fun to explore and walk around. Plenty to, again, it's not got much history. Well, it has got history, but not like ancient history like Xi'an or Beijing. There's a lot of, with it being a very colonial place, there's plenty of sort of reminders of colonial days there. So if you're into all that sort of thing, and for architecture as well, it's got some amazing architecture. And I really enjoyed the propaganda poster place that we went to, the communist propaganda place. That was really, it was just a tiny little place in the middle of nowhere. And you probably wouldn't see it if you were walking past it. You probably wouldn't notice it was there, but that was a really fun place to visit as well if you're into that sort of thing. So after that we went to Tai'an, which I'm sorry if any Chinese people are watching this, or if Chinese person, especially if you're from Tai'an, but it was shit. I'm sorry, it was shit. There was nothing there, nothing worth seeing really. I mean, even the whole purpose that we went there was to go up Taishan. It was just disappointing. I mean, obviously, it's not in the control of anybody what the weather's going to be like. And as you saw, when we got to the top, we couldn't see anything. It was misty, cloudy, it was raining, it was cold, which, yeah, isn't Tai'an's fault, but that was the one thing that we wanted out of Tai'an, was to be able to get to the top of this mountain and see a beautiful view, and even that didn't come through. It's just a ramshackle town in the middle of nowhere. They're still building it, really. Like I said, you can walk from one end to the other within, I don't know, 15 minutes, half an hour, and it's like, you are now entering Tai'an, and then you get to the side, you are now leaving Tai'an. You know, they're still building it. Maybe one day it might be a great city, but at the moment there's not really much there. It really is, I suppose, in a sense, that is what you could say is that it's real China, because it's not, there's nothing there that is sort of specially for tourists apart from the mountain. But yeah, there's basically a few bars. We went to one just repeatedly because it was decent. But yeah, it's not gauged for tourists, so I suppose if you want to see the real China, you should go there and have a look. But yeah, I wouldn't recommend it. If you want to go up mountains, there's one near Xi'an that's supposed to be quite good. So if you're in Xi'an anyway, go to the mountain for a day, and then save those days you would have spent in Tai'an and do something else. So yeah, I'm sorry to Tai'an, but they're my honest opinions, and there's no point in me lying or or trying to buttercoat it, sugarcoat it, because yeah, that's not the point of the video, is it? Anyway, and after that we're back to Beijing again, and like I said, it was a lot better the second time round. Yeah, everything, that was just less smog, less pollution, the weather was nicer, and yeah, I was able to enjoy it a lot more the second time around. So yeah, that pretty much wraps it up. I've hopefully given you some beneficial advice, some tips. I've told you what I thought of where I visited. hopefully you can take some inspiration from those for planning your own journey. So yeah, I'm sorry this has probably been like a really long video by now. I actually filmed this video yesterday. Well, another version of this video yesterday, but I just waffled so much throughout it. It was like nearly 2 hours long, so I decided to film it again today and cut out some of the waffle. I don't know how well I've done at doing that, but I'm guessing that it's still going to be a pretty long video, but I think it's hopefully been beneficial for you. And it's been fun for me to recap on my time there because it was an amazing experience. China is an amazing country and I would thoroughly recommend visiting. It's so different, it's so vibrant, for an example, you know, you can walk around at 2 AM and everything is lit up in neon and there's people outside drinking, playing cards or mahjong, and there's kids running around, and you think, you know, when I was a kid I had to be in bed by a certain time, but in China it's just not like that. It's a big family atmosphere. There's a very sort of relaxed atmosphere. People like to go out and eat barbecue and drink beer and chat and talk and just enjoy life, and I think that's one of the best things about China, is that there's that atmosphere there. So yeah, definitely check it out for yourselves if you've ever thought about visiting China. Don't think about it anymore, just go and do it because it'll be one of the best things you ever do. So yeah, I'm really running over now into overrunning in the video. So yeah, I'm sorry for waffling, but yeah, there we go. My final video, An Englishman in China. It's been a pleasure, and I'll be back with some England How It Is or Bears British Bites, hopefully very soon in the future. So until then, take it easy.